Hello, and welcome to Pushing the Limit. I'm your boy, and let me introduce you to the main star of the show, Jose. I used to work with Jose over at Blockbuster when renting videos at a brick and mortar store were a thing. And Jose here was known as the guy known for loving horror movies. So with the start of this project, Pushing the Limit's going to push the limits of how much horror this man can take. And with that said, we're going to start with one of the more controversial movies of all time, starting with Cannibal Holocaust. A film made in the 70s, released in 1980, and so controversial that the Italian government arrested him thinking that this movie was a snuff film.
This is true.
He had to produce the actors because they thought that they actually died. And then, of course, the controversy later on, years later, became about the use of animals. I'll let you talk about that, Jose.
Yes. Well, quick spoiler or heads up, depending on how you see it. So if you don't want to hear this part, fast forward. But anyway, you've been warned. So yeah, this movie may actually be one of the movies, if not single-handedly, one of the films that in the opening credits, or rather the closing credits of a movie, where you see the part that says, "No animal was harmed in the making of this movie." Yeah, this movie kind of may have set that bar. There's a scene in the movie where, there's actually two scenes in the movie where there's an animal issue. The first was a pig gets shot like point blank range on camera, which, you know, it's kind of like, oh crap, where did that come from? But it's there. The other one was definitely a bit more disturbing because it's not something you would typically think of. There's a scene where there's a big turtle, and I don't mean just like a turtle that's crossing the street. This is actually like a really big turtle that would probably take two men to lift, and this poor animal is actually killed on screen for real. It's not a prop. It's not a gimmick. It is a real life turtle that you actually see killed in a pretty gruesome way, and then eaten on camera by the actors. Some of the interviews that happened with one of those actors that pretty much traumatized him for some time as a result.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, for those that don't know actually what the movie's about, it's an influential movie in the regards of also being one of the first found footage films, which one of the movies, like, say, Blair Witch Project was inspired by this. So, what was the story? What's the story of this movie?
The story was essentially following three American documentary people, students actually, and they basically went to this country initially to shoot a documentary about a tribe of people that were rumored to exist, but they'd never ever been seen by the outside world before. So it starts out as innocent as you would imagine that kind of a storyline to be, but it takes a really kind of a twisted turn. And the premise of the film is that the footage, to my brother's point here, is essentially found and is being reconstructed to find out what happened. Because when the footage was found, there was a lot of blood, there was a lot of questionable scenarios that happened in the area. So they pieced it together to basically find out what happened. And what they saw was it's a lot of atrocities. Once again, spoilers or a heads up, depending on how you want to take that. But this film has, obviously, cannibalism in the title, Cannibal Holocaust. But what happens is the three documentary students start changing, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, and they start using almost a camera like a diffuser for life. They actually start screwing around with the native peoples that they're finding for the sake of getting footage. So they are actually doing things, initially kind of like staging footage, but they're actually hurting people. They're actually causing the tribe's people to actually sacrifice themselves because of certain things that they do. In one example that they catch early on, which this one, on the whole, the movie was definitely, being 70s, it is dated. But there's a few scenes in this movie that did actually kind of, make me kind of take like a holy crap moment, like just, but still nothing that I would say push my limit. But
so the rape scenes where they rape one of the tribeswomen, or
yeah,
afterwards where they sacrificed the tribeswoman because she was raped.
Exactly what I'm talking about. Yes. So to what we're talking about, there is a scene where there are three American men and one American woman, and you have the one guy filming, and the two guys essentially take this, and she turns out she was a virgin, and that comes into play, and basically rape her in this muddy field, just out of nowhere, like it's something to be expected. Now, the shocker in that scene isn't the fact that these guys are taking turns, okay? It's the fact that the female is simply saying, we don't have enough we don't have enough tape, we don't have enough film, we don't need to waste it with this. Never mind the fact that this young virgin is being raped right behind you. So that was kind of like a whoa, you know. So even whatever maternal instincts you would have expected to have from a female person seeing this happen was gone. But in the background, you see tribesmen witnessing this. In the next scene, and this didn't so much get me, but pissed me off. I mean, like I felt an anger on this one. The next scene, we see the same tribeswoman that was raped, a virgin, on a la Dracula style, impaled. It literally through her body. So you got a big 6 foot spike. She was literally impaled on it. So she's like spikes coming out of her mouth, and I'm not gonna say anything else because it's a gruesome scene, which is definitely part of the reason why the Italian government thought it was real, because for the time and even by today's standards, it is hard to tell whether that's a prop or real. It looked pretty freaking real, but you know that by itself is one thing. But what pissed me off about that scene the most was the camera guy catches one of the guys that did the deed, and he's actually smiling. The camera guys to say like, "Hey Chuck," and he's like, "Oh, such a gruesome thing that they did." It's kind of like, I mean, you could really tell that he's gone out there. All of them have just freaking lost it, and they went there for a pure reason, but they brought evil with them.
Now, with one of the funny things, like you said, the Italian government was a little freaked out by that scene. They actually had to show how they did that scene. It was with a bicycle seat, using that end, and then using I can't remember what they did with the going inside the mouth, but it
basically it was from what I understand, I think it was a prosthetic where very similar to like what boxers wear for the mouth guard, but with the part protruding. So basically, she was biting down, and the part was protruding.
Yeah, that was
by today's standards, a simple effect. But even watching that today, knowing it's a '70s film, it was very impressive, that scene, as far as film wise.
I'm sure someone like Robert Rodriguez was influenced by it because cheap tricks like that.
Eli Roth,
Yeah, that too. And at the end, they all the three Americans all get killed, and the woman gets raped. They find the footage of it, and they decide whether to air it.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly because they're now, so the people that had the footage put together in the film, they're now watching it and airing it to see, hey, should we air this? The people have a right to know, yada yada. When they see the ending, they quickly change their mind, and even one of the people says, "I want this footage burned." So at the end of the day, the tribes people finally get the Americans that went there, and like I said, they each met a gruesome death. You had one guy that was literally torn apart. The American girl that didn't pay any mind to the fact that she was watching her group rape this poor virgin earlier, she literally got what came to her in the aspect of she was actually herself raped by several of the tribesmen, and then the tribes women carry her off, beating her with stones and axes that they've made with stone and whatnot. And then in the same scene with no cuts, and this is what actually adds to it. This entire stuff, you see a shaky camera, a la Blair Witch and whatnot, but it's in one take. You then suddenly see her head come off, so it looks like they literally tore her apart, limb from limb.
Ooh.
Once again, 70s, but the way it was done, even by today's standards, it was, as a film, knowing that it's fake, I could say it's impressive because it's not real. But the first time I watched it, as a teen, I was just like, oh my God, did I just watch something illegal? I was freaked out because, man, did I watch something illegal? But no, like I said, it turned out, to your point, it was a work of fiction. But the director, like I said, he did such one hell of a job that he was being arrested and held in Italy until he could produce, one, the actors, and two, describe to them how the hell he pulled off these scenes.
So it shocked you when you first
watched
it?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I would say it's shocking. Yeah, that one is definitely it was a good one.
Was this one you could say you took a shower afterward after feeling so dirty watching this?
I wouldn't say that. I definitely didn't go to bed right immediately. I'll say that. I kind of like I needed to watch something funny afterward. I'll give it that, and that's a badge of honor for me to have to say, you know what, I need some comedy. You know.
Yeah.
So it was a good. That got me.
Like I said, this man is the horror guy, and for him to say something like that, it's something that's worth watching, worth going out of your way to find. And I think it's available now if you were here in the States. It's not banned here. I know it was banned in a few countries. Yeah. It was, but I think the uncut on Blu-ray now is available.
I believe so. Yeah.
Try to get you a link to that in the description. Check it out. So check it out. Good Cannibal Holocaust. And this is the first episode of Pushing Limits. Check out next week, episode 2. We're going to look at The Bunny Game, one that was released in 2010, and I want to hear his thoughts on that. So we're going to hear that. Come back next week, and thank you for watching Pushing the Limit.
Okay.
And we're clear.
All right. So I'm going to do a cut just to give us a fresh cut. Ah, damn it.